I think in Sierra Leone, the British are doing a fantastic job. I think that's generally recognized. I mean, I should say I'm here because my foundation has been working in Sierra Leone and indeed in Liberia and Guinea as well for several years. Obviously now the teams are working on the Ebola response. I mean, I think the situation is that this is still extremely difficult. The number of cases here is still rising. On the other hand, there's a vast amount of organizational work that's now going in. There's a proper National Ebola Response Center. Out in some of the districts, there's a much, much greater capability now of dealing with the disease. People know what they need to do. The question is, can they ramp up fast enough to do it properly?
We do appear to be paying more attention to Ebola than malaria at the moment. Malaria, of course, killing many more people in the part of Africa where you are, and in fact South Africa and the like as well. Is that fair criticism?
No, I don't think it is really, because of course it's important that we deal with malaria, and by the way, we are dealing with malaria. Malaria deaths are now down by probably about 250,000 from their peak a few years ago. But the problem with Ebola is if you don't deal with Ebola and eradicate it, then you will have a serious crisis affecting the whole of West Africa and possibly beyond it. And so, no, the world is absolutely right to focus on Ebola. It probably should have focused on it a lot sooner and done a lot more, a lot quicker. But, I mean, in both Sierra Leone, where the British are in the front line, Liberia, where the Americans are taking the lead, in Guinea, where France is taking the lead, people are working really, really hard. And here in Sierra Leone, I mean, I've been visiting some of the centres today and seeing exactly what's happening. There's no doubt at all people are treating it now with the urgency it needs. The difficulty, as I say, is that how you align the pace with which you get all the measures in place with the pace with which the disease is developing.
Bill Gates says that there is a very significant chance to halt the Ebola epidemic, but more lessons must be learned. What do you think those are?
I think the lessons are twofold. First of all, from the international community point of view, we need far, far quicker response when something like this happens. And, it's not, I mean, this is a situation in which those that know about this were saying right from the very outset, this is incredibly serious. You may only have a few cases at the moment, but there is an exponential rise that will occur if you don't take very firm action very quickly. So I think that is one lesson, one obvious lesson. I think that many of those international organizations, like the World Health Organization, will be learning the lessons. The second thing, though, is I think in the countries themselves, as I say, my team's been working in Sierra Leone for quite a long period of time, and the tragedy for the country is it really was starting to grow strongly, develop strongly. Every time I've been coming to Sierra Leone, every few months, it's been just getting better and better. But the healthcare institutions were not really capable and strong enough to withstand this. So the other thing is what can be done in the countries to build more robust institutions of disease control.
So far, £20 million has been raised by British people for those who are suffering most in West Africa. There has been some criticism of Sir Bob Geldof and other singers who are coaxing us to buy a record that will be released next week. It's Christmas, I think it's the 4th time it will be released, and thus the suggestion is salve our conscience by buying that record. Do you accept that criticism, and what more can British people do?
I don't really understand the criticism. I mean, I think the work, by the way, that people like Bob Geldof and Bono and others have done over the years has been absolutely fantastic. And they're raising awareness, they're raising money for a great cause. And, the one thing people should understand about Africa, I know at the moment a lot of the focus will be on Ebola, and that's a terrible story, and it'll make people very anxious and worried. But that aside, as it were, Africa is a success story over the past few years, partly because of all the aid and the help that's gone in there. So the original Band-Aid, which at least I remember back in the 1980s, was about Ethiopia, which is a country I also do work in today, but where now it is a country that has moved way beyond those years, is actually developing fast. It's the 2nd largest country by population in Africa, and it's doing well. So I think, the work that's being done by people to raise awareness of this over time, by governments, and the Gleneagles Summit, G8 Summit 2005 was a sort of the benchmark for that. The work governments are doing, the work that organizations, NGOs and others are doing, and people like Bob Geldof. No, I mean, I think this has all contributed to what has actually been a successful decade for Africa. But as the Ebola thing shows, these countries can be, or some of them can be, still very vulnerable to this type of disease.